call. We're very busy and we appreciate you making time for this webinar. Before, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. These are on mute. If you ask a question during the webinar, please use chat on the webinar toolbar. The bar can be found on the right-hand side of your screen. You should see a text box where you can then type a question. Please select all panelists to ensure that all of our presenters can see your questions. Questions read aloud and answered during the Q&A portion of the webinar. In order to keep to our schedule, we may not have time for all questions. In that case, we will compile your questions into an FAQ following the webinar. The webinar will be recorded and will be posted to the NASCAS website. This webinar will be presented by Hassett, Director of Division of State Assistance at the Office of Community Services, Jarl Crocker, Director of Training and Technical Assistance from the Community Action Partnership, Barbara, Director of the Association of Nationally Certified ROMA Trainers and Consultant with NASCAS, and Lauren Cook, CSBG Deputy Director. The agenda for today's webinar is to discuss Module 4 of the CSBG Annual Report. That is the individual and family level module in the report. We will consider the elements of Module 4, the Section A, which contains the family level national performance indicators, Section B, which contains the services list and services report form, and Section C, all characteristics report. Also discuss available tools and resources. Before, I'd like to turn it over to Jarl Crocker for a welcome from the partnership. Jarl?
Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Jarl Crocker, Director of Training and Technical Assistance at the Community Action Partnership, and also on behalf of Denise Harlow, our CEO. Again, just wanted to thank both NASCASP and OCS for helping put this webinar together. We hope that it is informative, and just to let everyone on the line know, you should always feel free to follow up with us directly if you have any other questions or if we can be of any other assistance to your agencies. So, Katie, thanks again for the opportunity to say hello.
You bet, Jarl. I'll turn it over to Seth Hassett from OCS. Seth?
Katie, and good afternoon, everybody. Our remarks are going to be a little bit short here, but I'm here today with Crystal Cruz, who is the OCS Program Analyst, who's responsible for Regions 4, 5, and 7. And she'll be saying hello as well this morning, this afternoon. Today's webinar is focused on Module 4, the individual and family level indicators. And this is an important webinar because in terms of adaptation of local data systems and the overall volume of reporting, I think this is the most significant module in terms of in the new annual report for especially local agencies. While obviously CSBG community action agencies or eligible entities will have outcomes, not all will have outcomes to report in all domains of Module 4. It's generally expected that community action agencies have individual and family outcome information report consistent with their community action plans. And so we look forward to and we'll be working with you to make this successful. I didn't ask Crystal Cruz if she wanted to say a few remarks as well.
Hello, everyone. Again, this is Crystal Cruz, and thank you all for your participation on the call today. Just want to say, as the OCS Program Analyst, I'm responsible for Regions 4B, 5, and 7, and just to kind of give you a sense of the states, in 4B, those states include Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and in Region 5, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. Lastly, Region 7 is Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri. I'll help coordinate activities with our Regional Performance and Innovation Consortium grants, and we're always looking for ways to make sure those grants are supporting useful technical assistance related to our performance management framework. Forward to checking in with state CSBG managers about progress and preparing for the new annual report, and I encourage those of you who are at local agencies to share questions with your state CSBG staff. This is a process for all of us, and within OCS, We are working through information and to be responsive to questions as they come in. Thank you again.
Thank you. And also here with Monique Alcantara, we will be listening. And Monique has been involved in the work that we're doing around automation of the annual report and all that we've done to automate the state plan as well. So we'll be listening to get to this presentation today, listening to the questions, and we'll go through the Q&A session as well. So I believe I'm handing over at this point to Barbara Mooney for the next section of the presentation.
I have the opportunity to set the stage for this webinar by talking a little bit about the Performance Management Network. And the Performance Management Network is really about helping to define what community action does and what community action achieves. And so this is answering a lot of the questions that are related to the productive, efficiently managed agencies, different services and strategies, and what kind of outcomes that we're achieving. So the elements of the performance management framework as we are talking about it today, the local organizational standards, state and federal accountability measures, the ROMA system, results-oriented management and accountability, and then some elements of a next generation look at that system, and the annual report, which really is a way to look at the CSBG outcome measures in a new and updated way. What elements of ROMA next generation and the performance management framework is the National Community Action Theory of Change. And you see a graphic here that shows the community action goals at the top, showing what we expect to achieve through community action work. And the individuals and families achieving stability and economic security, communities being healthy, and people with low income engaged in those communities. Along there, you see services and strategies, and these are the domain areas in which the national performance indicators are now arranged. So you'll see this in all of the modules reference to these domains, and they really show the scope of things that we know go into movement towards economic security, as opposed to the greater focus on different goal levels, with goal one being mostly about employment. We now are seeing a wider look at what we do and how all of these domains act together. What does what do we see here in the core principles and the performance management box? A lot of foundation at the bottom talking about the 1,000 community action agencies that are working together. Well, it really moves us to some of the key elements of ROMA Next Generation. And that we're talking about performance management, but even more than that, we're talking about performance measurement. How do we measure the performance so that we can manage it? So there's a lot that we must have a continuous quality improvement plan, a very complex system that is community action. We demonstrate our commitment to seeing outcomes, seeing results happening, and do it in a way that strengthens the local solutions that are developed by agencies for family and community outcomes. Really, we want to make sure that we're focused on the agency capacity so that ROMA Next Generation, we build agency capacity for the long term. One way to look at this is to take the ROMA cycle we see here and then think about how the collection and use of through a data collection and analysis process will help implement the full ROMA cycle. We're including what we see in the assessment phase, planning, implementation, achievement of results, and evaluation. We'll come back to this slide later in the presentation to talk in more detail about each of the areas. But you can that there are data collection and analysis questions at each of those pieces that help us move towards a new generation, next generation of thinking about results-oriented management and accountability. So how all fit together. You see here the local community needs assessment, producing an agency-wide strategic plan with a focus on the community action plan. The local pieces get pulled together into the state CSBG plan, which is then revisited at the end of the year in the annual report. All of this goes together to provide a congressional report that says what we're doing with community action and with CSBG funding in particular. Today we're going to look at Module 4 of the 4 modules in the new CSBG annual report, with Module 4 being at the individual and family level. And I believe it's Jarl who's going to talk first about this module.
Yeah, Barbara, we'll talk about the individual and family level module. Next slide. I think it's important to start off by making it clear exactly what the new annual report does to help us really tell the story of community action. And I think what you'll see as we go through the upcoming slides is an improved ability to really tell the story about who we're serving, what services we're providing, and ultimately what outcomes that we're able to achieve from the local to the national level. And I think the new annual report really helps us especially summarize data at the national level to really more effectively tell the story of community action. And it also provides that common set of measures to track our network's performance with respect to the services provided to individuals and families. And I think there are a couple of points that are important to stress. That is that the annual report allows us to report on all the agency services, not just those that are CSBG funded activities, because even though we know that CSBG funds are sometimes used for services, a significant amount are used for those supporting activities that let us do services better. So it's important to be able to track the entirety of the impact that's achieved through that CSBG funding. Also provides data to help agencies and states analyze what's working and identify steps to improve interventions and impact. So there's a more comprehensive list of programs and services and outcomes and participant characteristics, which will, we hope, greatly improve the ability of agencies to look at their data and see what's working and really engage in program and performance improvement based on what the data says. Next. And so, one of the things that I think the annual report really does is clearly break out the story of what happens to the people that we serve. It begins, if you track actually from the bottom of the slide, talking about the people that we serve, looking at that unduplicated account, and tracking all of those participant characteristics. So not just demographic information, but also things like income, job status, education, and those other characteristics, really going to tell the story of who's receiving the services. Next, the annual report provides, I think, a more accurate list of services that are actually being provided to allow us to, again, account for exactly what community action agencies are providing to their participants. And then finally, it lets us report on the outcomes those participants have achieved through those NPIs. So it provides, I think, a compelling story about who we're serving, what services we're providing them with, and the ultimate impact of those services. So, for example, if you had a workforce development program that served 80 participants and your data showed that 50 of those individuals obtained jobs as a result of that particular program, you would be able to start out by looking at that program characteristic data to be able to tell exactly who received services. So it gives a very accurate breakdown of the populations that we're serving. Then you would be able to look, for example, at the overall targets that we had set, and we were able to achieve. So if 50 of those individuals out of those 80 folks who received the services then went on to obtain a job as a result of that training, you would then be able to look at the outcome and ask who of those 50 who actually achieved the job, were able to obtain a job, are there differences in those participant characteristics? What does that tell us about who is successful at obtaining that job? And then translate that hopefully into meaningful data that would then allow you to improve that overall service because you have better information about who's in your programs and services, what services they're receiving, and those ultimate outcomes. And so this slide just simply shows you the sections of the new annual report for Module 4. Section A, Individual and Family National Performance Indicators. Section B, Individual and Family Services. And then Section C, the All Characteristics Report. What this slide shows you is the crosswalk between the new annual report and the old IS survey. So you can see how Section A, B, and C track to what you're used to with the old IS survey, and hopefully help you take a look at what you would need to do differently with the new annual report, and both see what is unchanged and also what some of the differences are with that new annual report. This slide shows you the list of national performance indicators. They are organized by domain, and so they include employment, education and cognitive development, income and asset building, housing, health, social behavioral development, civic engagement and community involvement, and then finally 7, outcomes across multiple domains. Indicators provide a means to measure achievement or movement towards the long-term goals, and so you'll see the specific list shortly, but they also allow you to document the number of people who received services and number who achieved outcomes. And so as I was saying at the beginning, this provides more comprehensive and more accurate data for analysis because we're able to answer the question, what change was expected, change actually happened, how the actual change compare with the expected change, are projections accurate, and then what percentage of the people served achieved the outcome. So it lets us, I think, do more with the data that we collect, both tell a more compelling story, but also engage in performance improvement because we have more accurate, more comprehensive data to look at. And so, for the national performance indicators, again, to stress, agencies only report on those MPIs that are relevant to achieving the goals and outcomes set by the agency based on local needs and conditions. You're not supposed to report on every single service and every single MPI, only the ones that fit with those programs and services that you're providing and the outcomes that they're achieving. The annual report does not mandate the use of any of the proposed outcome indicators, but what it does provide you is a set of standardized menu of indicators based on those that have proven effective at the family level for many years. And so I will turn it on over for discussion of those performance indicators.
Great, thank you, Jarl. This is Katie Kajowski again. One of the important things that Jarl kept hitting on is that this is a menu of options. There is no requirement to report on any one or any one set of indicators. Next. One of the things that we've been talking a lot about during the trainings that we've been doing in states is that implementing this report, you may want to consider picking the low-hanging fruit. Look at the data that you're currently collecting. Identify where in the new annual report that data could be reported, and start there. Also, when you're reviewing the indicators, take a look at what you might want to report on in the next year or the next 3 years. And this is a phased-in approach. So really looking at this report through the lens of what do I currently do and could I possibly do in terms of reporting, and taking it from there. We're starting with the individual and family national performance indicators. All these screenshots that you'll see come from our annotated version of the new annual report, which is located on our website. And we will show you near the end of the presentation exactly where you can find all of these resources that are located on our website. These are the employment indicators, family-level indicators. The employment indicators collect data on unduplicated participants who achieve employment outcomes. From the slide that these are similar to NPIs 1.1A through D, but they expand on what's in those NPIs. For example, we now can have opportunity to report on tracking the number of unemployed adults who obtained and maintained employment for at least 180 days. Also track now the number of unemployed adults who obtained and maintained employment with a living wage or higher. So we've added some new indicators in here. In all of the indicator sections, you'll notice that there are 5 columns. This one is where you'll report the number of participants served. Second one, and this is true for every indicator, will be the target, the number that you're seeking to attain that outcome. The third column you'll report is where you'll report actual results. And 4 and 5 will auto-populate with the percent achieving that outcome and the performance target accuracy. And in the employment indicators, report on all the federal, state, local, privately funded activities that focus on employment that you do at your agency. And again, only report on the indicators that make sense with the work they're doing. Education and cognitive development indicators, they get data on outcomes achieved by low-income children, youth, caregivers, and other adult participants in community action programs. Indicators in this domain are designed to closely correspond, and in some cases are almost verbatim the Head Start program performance measures. So if you have Head Start programs, pay attention to these indicators. This is where you'll be reporting outcomes achieved by families in those programs. What to note about this slide is you notice row with numbered 3, the number of children and youth who demonstrated improved positive approaches toward learning, including improved attention skills. That is not a row that is filled in. It is the following 3 rows, or rows, A through C, about early childhood education through 8th and 9th through 12th. It's very similar to question number 4 about the number of children and youth who are achieving at basic grade level. That's a grayed out row. Data is not entered there, but is entered in the following 3 rows. As you can see from this slide, this annotated version, that these new indicators expand on what you've been reporting on in 6.3 and in some cases 1.2. Next. The income and asset building indicators, as you might notice, all of the PIs and the services are organized by the domains that you saw in our national theory of change. The income and asset building indicators collect data on the number of unduplicated participants who achieve outcomes as a result of the work that you're doing within an organization. Some examples in here are talking about increasing the ability to meet basic needs, increasing assets, the ability to manage and utilize resources, and improving financial well-being. You can see in this particular set of indicators that there are a few new ones. So you're completing your internal review of this document, environment, pay close attention to what's brand new. Housing indicators. This is the fourth domain. Housing indicators collect data on the unduplicated number of households who achieve outcomes. One thing to pay attention to is when you're reviewing these indicators is looking at if you're collecting data on the participant or on the household. And the housing indicators collect on the household. That you would report outcomes to report in this domain would be accessing emergency housing, obtaining and maintaining stable housing, reducing eviction, improving the health and safety of a home. This is one place where you could consider reporting weatherization. Notice that these indicators are similar in some cases to 6.2 and 1.2. We have a couple of new ones. Next. Then social development indicators. These fall under the fifth domain. Then social behavioral development indicators will collect data on the unduplicated number of households who achieve outcomes such as improving physical, mental, and behavioral health, increasing household interaction skills, demonstrating the ability to live independently, and also help folks with disabilities or chronic illnesses living independently. There are quite a few new indicators in this domain, as you can see, and one that is very similar to NPI 6.3. The civic engagement and community involvement domain is all new. This collects data. This is the sixth domain. It collects data on the unduplicated number of individuals who achieve outcomes such as increasing leadership skills, their social networks, enhancing their ability to engage in community activities. This will programs like leadership classes or leadership groups. And all of these are new. Indicator and each domain has an other option. So the outcome that you are seeking to achieve is not listed or does not fit with what is available in this menu of options. You have the opportunity of writing in an other that fits with the work that you're doing, the outcome you're attempting to achieve. That is across the module. So new in this annual report is a section called Outcomes Across Multiple Domains. This collects data on the unduplicated number of individuals who achieve one or more of the outcomes reported throughout the other indicators. So for example, if you assist in obtaining employment and obtaining and maintaining housing, you would report them in the employment indicators, you'd likely report them in the housing indicators, and then you could report them here as unduplicated. And please note that this is assuming that your systems can do unduplicated count across these multiple domains. Again, as a reminder, this is all voluntary in terms of what you report on. The indicators you report on are choice. The report itself isn't necessarily voluntary, but the indicators are. I misspoke on that. So you can select what makes sense with the work that you're doing. I'm going to turn it over to individual and family level services.
Hey, thanks so much, Katie. So turning to the individual and family level services. The services list, this is obviously the new list in the annual report, and it tracks the services that we deliver to individuals and families. And because we had received some feedback that the outputs and outcomes had been a little bit mixed together in the IS, services and outcomes have now been separated so we can better understand and tell that story of what services are being provided by the network to achieve results for individuals and families. you see in front of you are the services for Goal 1 under Employment Services. So I think a couple of things to point out. The first is if you look at that top skills, training, and opportunities for experience, those grayed out you don't report anything there. You would just report under them. I know that seems like a relatively minor thing, but I think important to recognize you're not reporting on any of the grayed out areas. Those are just the section headers. You're reporting under those specific services. And then secondly, as Katie pointed out in the previous slides on the MPIs, I think one of the most valuable things about these slides are the crosswalk they do with the old IS, showing where sections have been expanded, where there are new indicators, new services. So that lets you do that crosswalk back to individual agencies to make sure that you're collecting the right kind of data for the right kinds of programs and the right kinds of services. So just walking through these, you have different services to report under skills, training, and opportunities for experience, career counseling, job search, post-employment supports, and employment supplies. And you can see the note shows that that's expanding on the IS-MPI 1.2a. So, and good for doing that crosswalk back at your agency to see what's basically unchanged from what you have previously been reporting and where you might need to do a deeper dive, making sure you're collecting the right information that will allow you to report. Next slide. So this details the services under education and cognitive development. So just two categories here, child and young adult education programs. So you see the comprehensive list of services that you can provide that section. And note that the school supplies is new. So if you're offering school supplies, that is a new thing that you can report on. And I also think that shows that the new annual report is going to let you report more accurately on the services you provided as an expanded list of services that will hopefully capture more comprehensively all the things that you're doing for the families, individuals, and communities that you serve. Next. So this shows you the services under income and asset building. So it covers services under training and financial services, and you see in there the specific services that are new, that are called out. So again, you want to go back to your agencies and make sure that you're collecting that unduplicated count of the individuals served for those new services. And there are also the services under benefit coordination and advocacy, again calling out those two new services, so under health insurance, and then also connecting you to showing the connections to the IS-MPI 1.3b there. So again, very handy for doing the crosswalk to make sure you're, especially for those new services, you're collecting the information you need to. Next slide. These are the services under housing services, and you can see there's a lot of red here. So if you're providing housing services, I think this is one to pay some close attention to. There are a number of new services that you can report. And there's some changes, combinations specifically from the old IS. So again, this is one I think that would behoove folks to do, again, a deeper dive just to make sure you're tracking those unduplicated counts and are able to report on these specific services. And those cover services under housing payment assistance, eviction prevention services, utility payment assistance, and housing placement and rapid rehousing. So again, pay a special focus to those new services and make sure that you're collecting data on that unduplicated count for the folks that you're serving. Next slide. So there's health and social behavioral development services. And again, two main categories here, health services, screening and assessment, and reproductive health services, again, calling out those new services, and then clearly explaining what's been combined and or expanded from the old MPIs to let you do that crosswalk. Next. This covers the services supporting multiple domains, and again, a longer list of specific services, case management, eligibility determinations, referrals, transportation services, child care, elder care, identification documents, re-entry services, and immigration support services. So a fairly comprehensive list of services under this particular set of services when you are supporting multiple domains. So again, a good way to let you capture providing those types of services. Civic engagement and community involvement, and just provide you with a series of services, a little bit more straightforward, better education and access, leadership training, tripartite board membership, citizenship classes, getting ahead classes, and volunteer training to allow you to count for those civic engagement and community involvement services. And again, a couple of new ones that are included here. Turn it back over to folks to talk examples.
Charles, let's look at a couple of examples now that we've gone through the indicators and the services. So CAA operates a family development program. They help 50 people obtain and maintain employment for 6 months. 12 of the 50 also obtained a certificate or diploma. All 50 people received multiple services to obtain these outcomes. Where would you report these outcomes and services in Module 4? And the answer is you do have some choices here. On employment MPIs, you could report them under the number, you would report them under the number of unemployed adults who obtained employment up to a living wage. Because they were in that program for 6 months, you would also report them the indicator reporting unemployed adults who obtain and maintain employment for at least 90 days, and also the indicator tracking up to 180 days. On education MPIs, you could report the outcomes under the number of individuals who obtained a recognized credential, certificate, or degree relating to the achievement of educational or vocational skills. And some possible services that folks could be reported under could be coaching, resume development, interview skills training, applied technology classes, or possibly high school equivalency classes. Example, a community action agency operates an in-home health program that assists seniors in maintaining an independent living situation. Where would these outcomes be reported in Module 4? It could be reported under the number of seniors 65 and up who maintained an independent living situation. That's a health and social behavioral development NPIs. And some of the services that these folks could be reported under could be in-home affordable seniors / disabled care sessions. That includes nursing, chores, and personal care services. Of multiple CAA programs. They're receiving services under a housing program, employment program, and tuition program. They obtain multiple outcomes during the program year. How can a community action agency report the success in Module 4? Can use the new indicators, outcomes across multiple domains. And this is if a CAA system can support the reporting of people obtaining multiple outcomes during the program year. They could be reported under the outcomes across multiple domains.
Thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Cook from NASCAS. We're going to kind of shift our focus now and think about the all characteristics report. This is section C of Module 4. The all characteristics report provides a full picture of the characteristics and demographics of all people served by eligible entities. So that's whether or not the services are funded directly by CSBG or by other funding sources in the agency. So it's very similar to Section D, if you're familiar with the CSBGIS survey. And this report will really help us strengthen demonstrating who is being served by all of our agencies. Just as in the CSBGIS, unduplicated counts are expected in this part of the report. So to obtain unduplicated counts, agencies will need to have a system in place that can distinguish characteristics for each individual or household. While some individuals and households might be served by several programs within a reporting year and entered into many different data systems, they would be reported as unduplicated individuals and unduplicated households in this report. Again, this is very similar to how we're reporting in the CSBGIS. So this is an example of the report. You can see on the screen that we've highlighted several items. So any highlighted in yellow has been updated or added from the CSBGIS survey. So this will make it easier to figure out what data points are new and you might need to consider as you're updating some of your forms or internal processes. Before we go through all of these categories and data points, I just want to kind of echo what Katie had discussed when we talked about the national performance indicators. Just like national performance indicators, we don't expect every agency to collect every one of these data points from the people that they serve. We understand that it might not be possible or appropriate to ask all of this information of your participants. This is kind of the same expectation that we have with reporting section G in the CSBGIS. So totals would not add up necessarily, but these are kind of all the data points that we like to learn about the folks that we're serving. So now let's take a deeper look at the actual report. You can see starting at the top on A, total unduplicated number of individuals about whom one or more characteristics were obtained. This would be an unduplicated count of all of the individuals served in all programs operated by the agency. And then the B, total unduplicated number of all households about whom one or more characteristics were obtained. This is, again, an unduplicated count of the households served by the agency. Now, in C, individual level characteristics, a lot of these are going to look familiar as to what you're reporting in the IS, but we have some updates. Gender, if we start there, that would be noted as either male, female, other, or we have this new category unknown or not reported. See that under age, we have some kind of new breakouts for the age ranges that all kind of line up with the indicators throughout the rest of the report. If we look at ethnicity or race, ask for both information on ethnicity and race of program participants. These all align with data collection by the U.S. Census Bureau, so this should look pretty familiar as well. If you look at education levels, you'll see that we've added a new column to collect education levels for youth ages 14 through 24. So this is a new piece on the updated annual report. We have a category now for graduate of other post-secondary school. Connected youth is a whole new category on this report, and they'd be youth ages 14 to 24 who are either working or in school. 5, health. This is where you could note duplicated number of participants who have a disabling condition. You can report on health insurance. And then the new part of this particular category are those health insurance sources. So there are many listed here, and we want to make sure we're clear that there may be cases where a participant has more than one of these sources, and you would be able to report multiple. On the side of this report, we do have a new category on military status. We heard a lot of positive feedback about adding this to the characteristics report. This is where you would report the unduplicated number of veterans or individuals in active military for any branch of the military. Another category is work status, and this is for participants 18 years of age or older. We have several categories here, so we're trying to cover all the folks that we would serve, whether they're employed full-time, part-time, migrant, seasonal farm worker, if they're unemployed, whether that's short-term or long-term, or if they're unemployed and not in the labor force, maybe they're retired or disabled and unable to work at this point in their lives. We have the unknown category as well. Moving to household level characteristics, a lot of these again are very similar to what we have in the IS survey. We have household type, single to adults, no children, and so forth. We've added a couple new options here, non-related adults with children and multi-generational households. Household size is pretty clear, but we've added single person as their own household. Sources of household income, these breakouts are a little bit different, but it'll give us a better sense of who has income just from employment, may have a combination of employment and other income sources plus non-cash benefits. So you'll see that these breakouts are quite different. And then we have additional information on those other income sources. So maybe that's from TANF or SSI, SSDI, and we've expanded those options for other income source. And then move to the end of this form, we look at housing. We added other permanent housing and unknown, a number 12 level of household income. These are very similar to what you're reporting in the CSBGIS, except we do have 250% and over of the guidelines from HHS. Right side, number 15, you can see the non-cash benefits. This is a new category with new options. This is where we have these programs like SNAP, WIC, LIHEAP, Housing Choice Vouchers, etc. So we're hoping that you'll see we'll cover more information that you're already collecting from the people you're serving. And if we can focus our attention on this red box at the bottom of the screen, section E and F. So that's where we look at the number of individuals or households that may not be included in the totals above. This section was added to this report because we really recognize after many years of data collection and working with states on their data collection systems and learning more about agency data collection, many agencies have multiple data systems and may not immediately be able to have an unduplicated count across several systems, or might have some limitations in obtaining some of this characteristic data. If you're not able to obtain an unduplicated count of individuals or households due to any of these systems issues, you could include these individuals or households in row E and row F of the report. See that we also have a space where you can indicate the programs in which these individuals and households were enrolled. So let's talk a little bit more about this new part of the report. The line E, this is the number of individuals not included in the totals above. As I said before, we add that they may not be included in the totals above. But this is likely due to data collection system or integration barriers. As I said before, this is where you'd be able to list individuals that may not have been included in item A or C at the top of the form, but due to the interoperability issues and unduplicated count, cannot be obtained for those particular programs. And then for line F, this is kind of the same thinking, but when we're reporting households. So just an example of when you might need to use line E or F, we have an individual who is served by an employment program, housing assistance, and LIHEAP, so three different programs. Unduplicated count is obtained from data entered for just the employment and housing programs, not from the LIHEAP data. The data from the employment and housing programs could be entered in item A and item C in the report, and then LIHEAP, since we're not able to get the unduplicated count to report in the rest of the report, you could put that in item E. I'm going to, again, kind of shift our focus and talk about targeting, and we have Barbara Mooney to walk us through this.
Okay, I'm going to talk about this concept of setting targets and what it means and why it means what it means to us. But I'm going to start and look at data in general. So if you look at the ROMA cycle again, the graphic that we had earlier, what we're talking about here is the data elements at each piece of this cycle. You really understand that you are collecting, or recognize or acknowledge that you are collecting data as you do all of these pieces. It's just a little different data, and how you put it together is essential. So the one piece under evaluation says, did we meet our targets? That would be a question that you would ask yourself. But before you get there, you have to set your targets. So we said that management is really based on data. So manage your performance if you haven't defined it, and if you're not able to measure it. And so, of course, we're set our expectations based on local needs and local identification of who you're serving. And so the first thing to do is to make sure that you're collecting the appropriate data, that you're organizing it into useful reports, and you're able to connect people and the communities that are in need with the services that are designed to achieve specific outcomes. And then, of course, you're going to identify the actions that you're going to take to improve or strengthen your outcomes. The basis for considering targeting. The very first question is, what do you want to achieve? And we're going to achieve what, of course, we want to achieve is one of the three national goals stated in broad, general terms. And that's going to shape the discussions that we have about the outcomes that are going to be achieved at the local level, and how that feeds into, or how that supports, the national goals. And we know what services and strategies that we're going to use to reach those goals. So Jar talked to us about the services in Module 4. We'll look at community-level strategies when we talk about Module 3, because those are going to be reported, and we're looking at those services and strategies as we go forward. Here's a question: how do we know if we reach the goal? We have some indicators that we've associated with the results. They're not exactly the outcomes. The outcomes are large statements. Indicators tell us how many that we expect to achieve of a specific thing. That will be an indicator of the outcomes that we said that we would achieve them. We quantify these results, and so we know how much or how many, and what percent of those who receive the service are expected to achieve the results. Now, thinking about all of this, you're thinking about, well, how am I going to know something? What's my measurement tool going to be? How do I know if someone's improved family functioning or if they changed their behavior in some way? How am I going to know that? And what I like to say is, a program, if this is your program and you're looking at this, you'll be able to determine what will be the measurement tools that you use. And we're going to have measurement tools that are either standardized tools or that are created by your program. The next slide there. And why is it important? The GEP legislation, both the original legislation and the Modernization Act more recently, refer to performance plan and performance goals. And it references the number of people who are expected to be served and the number of people that are expected to achieve the outcome. And those are the two pieces of data that you need in order to make a performance plan. The process really puts into perspective what you expect to achieve and what it's going to take in terms of your resources and your capacity as agency. You don't have, I know some people say, well, I haven't, I know how many I can target. It's all based on how many people come to be served. So we have a certain amount of money that we're going to be able to spend. I don't know how far that's going to go. And so you need to really consider that, because it's part of you identifying your resources to say, what's the average amount of money that I spend per person? Let's look at data from previous years to see what we've done in previous years, so that you have a sense of this, so that you're not sharp, that you actually have a sense of what you're going to be doing, and that this all ties together with national and state indicators, and that your scale and your timing is specific to the program that you have in mind. So the indicators are the measures, and the indicator, remember, the indicator is a combination of two numbers. It's the number of people served, and it's the number of people of those served that achieve the outcome. And that those two numbers, the indicators, provide a percent of success for your customers. And really, this really shows how close your actual indicators are to your projected indicators. It demonstrates your expectations. It demonstrates your agency's ability to understand how realistic your evaluation of your resources are, and how you can benchmark and set interim indicators. Very specific, as specific as you can be, to provide what it means by achieving the target. You're probably going to have more than one target, so be about that and be clear about the timing of each of your targets. You may have to set interim indicators to show how progress is working, and particularly if you have concepts of multiple year programs, you're going to have to set targets that have to do with specific time frames. So the more specific you are, the better about this. Of results that program participants pass the GED test, and the indicator that's associated with that is 30 of 50 participants achieved a score 85% or above on the GED exam, which is what constitutes passing. The outcome is parents demonstrate increased knowledge of good parenting skills, and the indicator is 12 out of 50 or 50% achieve a passing score on the post-test of needs related to parenting. So we're measuring the knowledge, the increase in knowledge. And hopefully this is making sense. This is starting to make sense. For you to think about the process, you're starting with your community needs assessment, you're looking and you're setting your goals, and as part of what you're doing in setting your goals is you're identifying outcomes, indicators, benchmarks, and time frames that are part of your setting of targets so that you can measure your impact as you go forward. Here's a little example of a logic model where I identified your need in the far left column. This is about the high school diploma. The individuals don't have a diploma. You're going to say, we expect to serve 100 students. And of those 100 students, we target 60 will improve their basic skills, and 40 will obtain a high school diploma or a GED. And ways that you're going to measure that, in this case, the output measure, the measure of success is the attendance log, and the outcome measure would be the GED test scores, or it could be the actual certificate. And your data processing and collection shows you how the data be collected and who will be doing it. That gives you a bit of an understanding of the target process and the value of it. And I'm turning it over.
Barbara, this is Lauren again, and just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, we will have the Q&A portion of this webinar at the end, so please send those questions to us through the chat, and make sure you send them to all panelists, so all of the presenters today will be able to see your questions. So before we get to the Q&A, we want to review some of our resources and tools that are available now and will be available in the coming months. If you were on our webinar with us last week, you would have seen some of these, but want to go over them again because we think that they can be really helpful to you as you move forward. The first item that we've updated and want to make sure you're aware of is a new numbering system for CSBG annual report. We'd received a lot of feedback and questions, there being a unique number for every indicator and data point in new annual report. So we have developed a new numbering system to make sure that we address that concern or suggestion. There is a version posted on our website right now that has this new numbering scheme in an Excel format. So the next step for us, NASCAS, will be to update all of our other forms and resources with this new numbering, which will be coming very soon. Another item that we really look at as a kind of go-to resource is our annotated CSBG annual report. These are the snapshots that you've been seeing throughout today's webinar of our indicators and the services. So what we've done in this document is go through the annual report and make those notations of what is completely new in the report or what might kind of crosswalk back to the CSBGIS. It can be found on the CSBG annual report page on the NASCAS website. Kind of go-to tool or tools are many crosswalks. If you're on the CSBG annual report page on NASCAS website, you'll see that we have a list of crosswalks that are available. And each one of those was developed based on a suggestion from a member of our network. The first one, or the one kind of in the back here, is that high-level crosswalk that shows how the new sections of the annual report align with the CSBGIS survey. So that's kind of your at a glance, how those two reports line up. You also have crosswalks between annual report, the IS survey, the ORC standards, and the ROMA principles. And then another crosswalk that starts with indicators in the CSBGIS and shows you what indicators you might be able to report on in the annual report. So Katie was talking about kind of picking those low-hanging fruit when you're reporting for the first time. This crosswalk will really help you do that. If you'd like to look at what you've been reporting on in the past, and then what indicators you could probably report on in the annual report. So make sure you take a look at those. This is, you can find all of these resources. You'll see in the red CSBG annual report, that's the page that has all these resources available. As we develop more module-specific resources, have those posted on the Module 1 and Module 2 through 4 pages as well. This is an example of all of the tools that we have. This is the list that you'll find on our website. If you're looking through this and it's seeming kind of overwhelming or like too many resources to look through, please feel free to reach out to any of us here at NASCAST. The partnership and OCS could help as well to help you figure out which tool would really be the best for what you're looking for. ROMA Next Generation page on the NASCAST website, if you'd like to learn more about ROMA Next Generation in general, this is where we'll post all of our updates on the theory of change as well. What kind of tools and resources will be coming? We're working on quite a few right now. We're hoping in the next month or so we'll have some crosswalks. One of them is a crosswalk between the report and other programs like LIHEAP, Head Start, WEOA, Authorization. Have our webinar series, of course, that will continue throughout this month. And then we're also working on instructions manuals and the lexicon for modules 2 through 4. We already have the instruction manual for Module 1 since the state's already reported on that particular module. But really taking a lot of time with instructions manuals for Module 3 and Module 4 and Module 2. Make sure that the guidance is as clear as possible and that those manuals will be as helpful as possible to you. So we've seen some questions come through about, you know, will there be instructions, will there be definitions for some of these terms, and we are working on those. We're going through a lot of vetting processes, so to make sure that it will be helpful to you once they're finalized. A resource for finding tools is the CSBG Training and Technical Assistance Resource Center. This website, if you haven't gone to it yet, we encourage you to check it out. This is managed by the Community Action Partnership and NASCAST. So we're both adding resources regularly to the site. And a helpful tip is that you don't necessarily have to make an account to access these resources. You could get on and take a look at these, the resources that are available right now if you'd like to. So we're moving to our question and answer period. While we're getting ready to go through those questions, sure you know who to contact at the NASCAST office. You contact Katie Kajowski, myself, or Jackie, or at the office if you come across a question. Very often we work as a team to review your question and provide guidance. We also work with Barbara Mooney and OCS and other partners to make sure that that your questions are answered as best as possible. And Katie, if you would like to get us started with the Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you for all of the information. We have received a lot of questions during this webinar, so thank you all for those great questions. As Lauren mentioned, we are working on an instruction manual, so a lot of those will help us define certain policies in the manual. Finally, anything that we can't answer in terms of time today on the webinar, we will put into an FAQ and release to you all. So the first question was, can you talk a little bit about why the NPIs don't ask for a target number of participants served in addition to the target number who achieved the outcome? Barb, I'm wondering if you would be able to answer that question for us.
It's a fabulous question, and it's a question that I've tortured myself with actually over time, because it's important in order for you to get the indicator, the projected indicator. You have the number of folks that are going to be served. You must have the number so that you can compare it with the number that you expect to achieve the outcome. So that's a number that you have at your agency level. The question is why you don't enter it at the report, and I would say it's because we're looking at two things in the reporting process. We're looking at the success for the clients or the customers, and that would be the number that were actually served divided by the number that actually achieved and divided by the number that were actually served. And those are the two numbers that are in the report. The other calculation, the other performance calculation, is how well the agency was able to target its success. So it asks for the projected outcome number as well as the actual outcome number. And then that's auto-calculated into the second percent. So the number served isn't needed at national level for the report, and that's why it's not included in the report, but is needed at the local level for your own management. Not everything that the agency needs for management is included in the report. I hope that makes sense.
That's great. Thank you, Barbara. Another question that we received, are services unduplicated per item? Is this a person count? Lauren, if you can answer that for us. And if she can't, I can. All services are reported unduplicated count of persons. So it is an unduplicated number. It is the people, you're counting the people who actually received the services. The people can be reported across multiple services, but unduplicated for each service. And what I mean by that is, for example, let's say somebody receives assistance with their resume, they're in coaching, and also receive some clothing for work purposes. They could be reported under all three of those services, but in each service they would need to be unduplicated.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I was unmuted, or
okay.
Unmuted rather when you asked, but hopefully everyone can see on the screen that we've pulled up an example of the services report. And to add on to what Katie said, it is unduplicated per service line. It's not added up or totaled for these kind of categories that are in gray. So we get a total number for skills training and opportunities for experience.
Great, thank you. The question that we've received is about outcomes across multiple domains. It said it asks for a number of participants who achieve one or more outcomes. Wouldn't this include people who achieved only one outcome? Seems like it should say number of participants who achieved more than one outcome across multiple domains. So I was wondering if you could shed some more light on the outcomes across multiple domains for us.
I think it may be helpful to first say this that is an understandable question. The way the title of that reads, it may be read to kind of you could look at it as trying to understand how many individuals achieve multiple outcomes across multiple domains. But what this is really, and it might be helpful to frame, that it's a measure where we're trying to capture amongst each agency how many individuals had improved outcomes, and it can across all these domains that are reported. So it can include if an individual had their outcomes only in one domain, but if an individual had outcomes across multiple domains, they would only be reported one time. And the general idea, this is a measure that we're looking to explore to kind of have some way of capturing the breadth of impact across all these diverse array of services that are delivered and services and strategies that are being put in place, and so that we also are going to be exploring this as a way to report and capture the breadth of impact both amongst the eligible entities, and then as we roll this up together, we can get a sense of the national numbers of people that are having improved outcomes as a result of the services and strategies that are being implemented by community action agencies. This is something that we're working, again, it is new, and we will be potentially going to be testing this as a developmental measure that we could use for Government Performance and Results Act. The challenge being that we can't report just 75 different indicators for our GIPR reporting, so looking for things that will help us capture how many people are having improvements in a relatively unduplicated way across these in our reports. So that I hope that helps. Again, the purpose of this is not about individuals who have experienced outcomes across multiple domains per se, as across all within a community action agency, as you report, how many individuals did you had improved outcomes in one or more domains.
Great, thank you. The next question, what is considered a living wage? And I can answer that. There is no national definition of a living wage. As such, we are allowing CSBG eligible entities to provide their own definitions, whether they're regional, local, statewide definitions for a living wage. There's a lot of tools out there that we mention in the instruction manual that we'll be releasing near the end of July, such as there's a Best and Elder Index tool established by WOW, an NIT living wage calculator, a variety of tools that are out there. There might even be other regional tools that you might be able to access through your state office. So, okay. And the next question, how do you measure improved parenting? Measure changes in general. Barbara, I'm wondering if you can answer that for us.
As I said earlier, if you're doing these programs, you should have some sense of the actual outcomes that you expect. So in some cases, parenting skills relate to the parents as teachers, and so you would have a method of understanding how often the parent read to the child, or how often they used they engaged them in language development, or so they're key things that had to do with their parental role. But in other cases, it might be more about language interaction, or anger management, or discipline techniques, and there would be some either standardized or locally developed pre- post measures that you would use to identify the change in behavior on the parenting skills level. So, I mean, there are lots of different kinds of tools out there. It's there's not something that's standardized across the country.
Thank you, Barbara. Well, that is it for all of the questions. Again, we did receive a lot of questions. We will be putting the ones that we just don't have time to get to today in an FAQ. The webinar will be posted to our website. We will have a recording and the actual slide deck. I want to draw your attention to some upcoming CSBG annual webinars. Right now, July 6th, you're on the Module 4 webinar. We're repeating this webinar tomorrow on July 7th and on July 14th. We will also be hosting 3 webinars on Module 3 on July 17th, 1st, and the 25th. We base these around different time zones to hopefully make them more accessible to you. You don't have to attend the one that's only in your time zone. You may select time that works best for you. And again, we will post all of this to our website and make this available to you as well. Next. Is actually our last slide. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We understand that you are all very busy and that your time is valuable. So we appreciate you spending the afternoon with us. Great afternoon.